Alright, in this tutorial we're going to apply keyframes to the suspension of the vehicle. But first we're going to go ahead and create another camera. And go with the default. It's going to create it right here in the center. Let's go ahead and pull that into place. And what we're looking for this particular camera is to be able to get a better view of this animation as it corners around this curve. So I think at this point we'll come right in here and see what this looks like in our camera view. And I'll just go ahead and use this panel to get a glimpse of that. This is the one that I want. Does it look like it? Let's go to camera 3. I did not remember that I'd already set a camera 2 here. Let's go to camera 3. Alright, well that's much closer, but we're ground level, so coming around here, it's going to slide right past us. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and switch our camera view to camera 3. Make sure that our resolution gate is on so we can know what's going to render and what's not. Alright, so coming around here, alright, we should be able to work with this. What I want to show you in this particular tutorial is keyframing the suspension of the vehicle. And this vehicle is moving so quickly in this animation, it's going to be hard to catch unless we come in closer at this slowed down area. Right. Should work for us. We can edit multi-cameras together. Alright, so I think what I'll do is switch back here to my perspective so I can work. And what I want to do is move that camera up a little bit. So come back here so we can see what's going on here. And I will rotate that down a little bit. Let me put us up out of the scene a little bit more. I wanted to, but alright, a little too high. So let's go ahead back and pull that down. Alright, so he's getting into the turn here, and we should be able to key some suspension here so that you can see. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is come on in here to perspective view, and we're going to grab the controller that we want. F on my keyboard. Okay, now that we have our suspension selected, I'm going to come in here to my camera view and take a look at what needs to happen with the suspension. Now as we come into this turn, there's a rack and pinion steering effect that comes into play. So I think what we'll do, since that is not this controller, it is managed, a side-to-side effect is managed by this controller. We'll grab that one first and come back into our camera view. As the car is turning into this turn, we're going to first want to put a keyframe out here as the steering is still facing forward. You can see this off screen, but let's go ahead and put a keyframe in there, and that's going to be along the y-axis. So we'll select on that, right click, key selected, set down a keyframe. So as we come into this turn, we're going to turn our tires as the tires are turning to the left, character left, then the rack and pinion kicks in and the vehicle will lean toward that wheel. So let's go in here and make sure that we're not having interpenetrating surfaces. We don't want that body to, and it is, I thought I saw that. We don't want to turn that so much that it penetrates the surfaces of the tire and the body together. So we'll draw that up out of there. We'll come back here, and once we have that position, we'll go ahead and set that keyframe, and it should automatically set with the key down here activated. But if you don't see that little red line there, go ahead and set that key. Now it's as this driver is coming into the turn, it's going to come back here and correct for that back end turning out. So I believe this is about the position where the car is, the steering is front again, and yes it is, and that's indicated by the 0 also here in the rotation. And the steering. Right. So we'll go ahead and affect this rotation also, and we want it we want it as extreme as possible because the camera is pretty far away from the subject. So we're going to do that as much as possible without, again, having those interpenetrating surfaces. So let's see what we've got here. You can begin to see that lean in and then that lean back as the car comes around the spin and corrects. Now it begins to correct here, so we're going to alright, I'm going to begin to shift that weight back a little bit as the vehicle begins to straighten out. So, hard right, excuse me, character left, correct, character right, and then in here begin to straighten up. Alright, so that's basically how you can begin to key the suspension. Now, of course, there are other controllers involved as well. You can get pretty detailed with how you key that suspension. If, for instance, the driver is going to brake as he comes into this turn, which is logical, then you'll see, let's go ahead and set a keyframe before we start braking. We'll go ahead and set one right here. And then as he comes into this turn and brakes, then we'll see the depression of that when the braking happens, the front suspension goes down slightly. Now we already have rack and pinion effect over that tire, so let's go in and make sure that that tire is not penetrating the surface of the body again. Alright, and it's not. Good. And so as he comes out of this turn, he's not going to want to put the brake on or he'll keep spinning out of control, so he'll release the brake, and so the translation on that Y is going to come back up to 0 translation. Let's keep that in there as well. So no more brake. I'll have to steer out of this turn. And you can actually make the scene pretty involved if you'd like go ahead and set another camera back further, so when he corrects for the hydroplane, then he might put on his gas again, which would cause a little bit of a rise in the front end as the rear wheels accelerate. So you can get really involved in this scene in the vehicle if you choose. Set numerous cameras, render at different sequences. Perhaps we cut away from this scene at this point. We go back to our camera, which is set back more. I think that's camera 2. And pick up the scene at this point and continue. See, our tires are still steering when they shouldn't be. So that's just the continuation of our animation. Okay, let's go ahead and correct that. It's around the let's zero that out. That way we have the forward steering again, straight steering, and the rotation continues on the tire. Alright, so when we go back to camera 2, yeah, we've got a curve in here that's going to continue to fight with us. Alright, so we set that back there. Now I can see this one. We'll go ahead and draw that up here to correct that tire. You can see now it's driving straight. So what this curve represents is that the tires, you can see the action in the camera view there, is that we're going from 0 down to a negative value, which means the tire is going to turn in that direction. This is 0 being the mean line, or the neutral value. And you can see that the wheels will turn the other direction in the positive value. So I've set this keyframe at 0. The car is corrected and back to forward, driving straight forward, and I want to maintain that through the end of my scene, which is frame 100, so really I don't need to be going beyond that. So you can see if I press my frame all key that now we have that value in place. Alright, so can become pretty involved in getting these scenes created, but you can certainly see how you can get your vehicle moving with just a few keyframes and getting some action in the scene so that you can render out a little animation for your portfolio. And once you have this set the way that you like it, you can go ahead and render that out in the number of keyframes. I would suggest rendering it, and I've reset it to 320 by 240. Going and rendering it out small as a test render rather than rendering it out the first pass at high definition, at 1080. It would be far less time consuming, and you're able to see any flaws that you want to correct before you actually render the final. Alright, I hope that encourages you to do extraordinary things for your portfolio with the models that you've created. And we'll get more into the vehicle animation in an animation course.